one of the things we often hear when we're doing our videos is that if you don't have a home, EVs can be almost an impossibility. Well, today we're going to talk about how Voltpost is helping to change that. I'm Patrick, half of the electric duo. Let me introduce you to Luke Myro from Voltpost. And you want to explain what, first of all, introduce yourself a little bit more and introduce Voltpost.
Sure. Well, thanks, Patrick, for having me. Really look forward to this conversation. I'm Luke Myro. I'm the co-founder of Voltpost. Voltpost, we democratize charging access. We turn lampposts into EV charging stations. So our focus has been exploring pole-mounted charging in cities primarily.
That's really interesting. So your solution is basically to take that power that's already out there, that's already through the parking lot or down the street, and basically make it accessible to EV drivers.
Yeah, so to give a bit of background, I live in New York City. I park my car on the street, my EV, and I can't charge it near my home because there's not many chargers nearby. So one of the biggest assets that's underutilized in cities is the already interconnected infrastructure, the lampposts. And so what we do is we use the existing conduit that goes to the lampposts, run new wire, and put an EV charger mounted onto the lampposts. And that provides communities with access to EV charging that wouldn't have it otherwise. That solution allows us to entirely avoid the construction and trenching process of digging up city blocks, which can be not only disruptive for the communities, but incredibly costly. And so we can save costs, time, and footprint of charger deployment through pole-mounted charging.
And you have some really nice cable management systems. So you don't have one that's, like at a parking meter that you have to drake the cable across traffic or pedestrian traffic.
We do. Our problem slide is someone running a wire outside of their upstairs window across the sidewalk. And so most people do not want to get clotheslined by electrical wire when out for their nice walk in the neighborhood. And so we have a charger that's mounted up high out of reach. And once a user unlocks the charger by scanning a QR code on the pole, it drops the plug to ADA height for that user to grab. They press a button on the plug, and that allows the cable to release out to where they plug it into their vehicle. And then after they're done with the charging, they unlock it, and then it automatically retracts back up inside of the asset on the pole. And so what that protects against is not only the cables dangling across the street, which is a safety concern, but it also protects against weathering where the cable's exposed for too long, and vandalism. People do crazy things to chargers, especially in cities. And so having it mounted up high avoids that.
Yeah, we checked into a hotel one time. They had, I think, 6 chargers with 6 cut cables. So I can imagine.
That's no good.
And I imagine this also is even stuff like, this past year, New York's had quite a bit of snow, so you don't have to worry about the cables being damaged with snow or the chargers being damaged like that. So
absolutely. Also flooding, right? Flooding. So because it's mounted high, you don't have that issue. There's a lot of environmental benefits to it as well.
Now, we're talking about street parking, but are you also looking at potentially retail parking lots or where employers may have a big parking lot with a bunch of light poles?
Anywhere there's a pole, we could do this. So we started with curbside charging as the primary focus. Enabling curbside charging in the US has taken time. We do a lot of hand-holding different municipalities, cities, utilities in creating curbside programs. We've been organically brought into a lot of opportunities in surface lots. So we can do essentially behind-the-meter charging with any building that has power. And so we've deployed a number of chargers across different states that are in surface lots. An example, one most recently, we installed the Henry Ford Museum in Michigan,
nice.
Which was really, really cool. We got a lot of good publicity around that, and people really excited to use chargers next to that historic spot. So yes, and the last point I'll mention as well is that we also can do wooden utility poles. And so there's multiples more wooden utility poles than there are lampposts, actually. There's tons across the country. And so it can be flexible on how we do the pole mounted and serves a number of different use cases depending on where the pole is.
So I guess the biggest thing is what are the biggest obstacles to getting this deployed? Is it policy or is it funding or people also being fearful of having an EV charger, which sounds weird, but we all know that happens.
Yeah, I think the answer to that has changed over the 5 years that we've done this. At first, I think people were questioning a lot of the technical barriers. What we've discovered over the course of building this is there's really not major technical barriers. This works, whether it's curbside in cities, whether it's in surface lots, whether it's wooden utility poles. There's a lot of precedent of similar technology being installed. And so we've combated a lot of those and can successfully do this. The technical side is really not the blocker. The longest process that we've faced is just the policy side. I mean, you can imagine any major city installing something new in the right of way has concerns. And I don't think that those concerns are necessarily unfounded. It's just we have to really walk through patiently, how do we create a program that's good for the end user, the end drivers in communities? And so that's been a lot of our work. And again, it's been helpful to lean on some of the existing precedent in walking through that.
So I don't know much about how much power is in light poles, and like how would that translate to EV charging? Like how much power are you able to get out of a light pole?
Yeah. I now definitely know more about light poles than I thought I ever would in my life. The solution that we have is not actually splitting the power that goes to the light itself. So we run a separate service that goes to the charger. And a couple benefits of that. One is it's less complicated that way. Like a lot of cities or utilities don't want us to even split the power that goes to the light. Two, to your point, the power that goes to the light is pretty minimal. The light itself doesn't need much. And then that process is actually very similar. The installation process is very similar to what's done with LED upgrades, in which we bring new wires through the existing conduit that attaches to the light pole. And maybe as a kind of last point of interest there, LED upgrades essentially save power that was going to that site, and it also saves space in the conduit because there's less wires. And so that also benefits us. So if anywhere there's an LED that's been converted, that gives us a good probability that we can actually upgrade that lamppost to pole-mounted charging. So we find a lot of interesting ways to actually piggyback on some of the lighting solutions that way.
So I guess like another big question is like, how are you getting into communities? Is it sort of like the communities are reaching out to you? Is it the community leaders or like constituents in a place that are saying like, I can't charge, I need something, and they sort of force the issue? Because that's something like we like to help with, is like trying to say like, how can people get this? Because it sounds cool. And I know that we have many Denver friends, for example, that would love this.
Sure. Give me their numbers. I'm happy to talk to them. We mostly work with the governments first. They are getting pressure to install charging. And we typically come in as kind of a second mover, where they've seen different solutions that are more, call it like standard, or some of the earlier charging companies that have created a lot of problems, and see the value of pole mounted and how it can scale for their community. So we get a lot of bottom up folks who really want this. We mostly though communicate with the government folks who are getting a lot of that communication and just speaking with their constituents.
Well, that's something we want to help. We have a very consumer facing audience, so we'd love to like have them put that pressure on, their elected leaders to say like, this is something that we want. So any other final things that we want to talk about with Voltpost? I think the wood pole issue was something I didn't think about, but it's like, I bet that is like a little bit more of a technical issue that you had to like figure out. Like a concrete pole is, you got cabling going in it. This seems like much easier to handle.
Yeah, and to your offer, how we've gone about most of our projects is we focus on a major market. We win an award to do kind of a widespread project, and then we look to work with different interest groups or community groups to understand where there's need or where there's demand. We worked with an EV group in Connecticut that was awesome, who helped us map out the state and where there's EV drivers who want charging solutions. And so would love to work with you or anyone in your network in your states on something similar. That has been very helpful to us. And then on the wooden utility pole side, one of the pieces on the technical side that's been helpful is there's a lot of infrastructure already mounted to wooden utility poles. It's 5G infrastructure, it's communications tech. And so when I mentioned earlier looking at precedent as a helpful way to move forward with what we're doing, we actually use that as precedent to progress conversations quicker, where there are third-party attachment agreements on those poles in major cities already. The installation process is relatively similar. And so that's been really helpful in just illuminating to people the technical side is pretty doable. And it's actually already been done with a lot of the design and engineering firms that are here at this conference today, who once we bring it up to them, they're like, oh yeah, that's exactly what we should do with this. So that's been very helpful for us.
And I'm sure installation costs, electricity costs, that all adds up. But I assume this is also a bit of a revenue generator long-term for the municipalities that do install this type of thing.
Yeah, so something that we're exploring and we want to implement is a rev share with municipalities. I mean, ultimately, public assets should be used for public good. I think that pole-mounted charging is a perfect way to do that. Not only does it save public subsidy because the cost to install is a lot lower, and that can be borne on the public, but I also think it's a great revenue opportunity, right? And so the thing I love about that too is it aligns incentives, right? If we create this program together, we can enable it to be successful from a marketing, communication perspective. And there's a lot of kind of guardrails we can put in place that, when done together, I think make for a more equitable program in the end.
Yeah, and I think those are some key factors too, because like one of the things that we've heard over and over, you switch to EV, you're helping improve the environment. But it's almost like this area that keeps getting forgotten is like the areas where there's the most cars, it's very dense populations, is also the areas where it's very hard to put in EV chargers. So this is helping to solve that and making some of the benefits of having EVs more equitable and hitting those areas where people don't have a garage.
Totally. And to layer in another use case to this that's interesting that we've been exploring, there are a lot of ride-hail vehicles going around major cities that need charging solutions, and they park all over those communities. So in New York City, a lot of those drivers might be in the center of Manhattan, but they live in the outer boroughs, and a risk is that the charging is concentrated only in the center areas and not ubiquitously, right? And so not only is it an underserved population, but there needs to be forethought of how do we create charging networks that are ubiquitous and equitable for everyone to access them. And as the cost of EVs go down, as gas prices continue to rise on a daily basis, as we know, not having access to the infrastructure will significantly disadvantage folks who should have the opportunity to get EVs.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of grant money out there. There's a lot of focus on that, and making this equitable. And it's sort of like I won't say neglected, but it is something that it's more difficult to take care of. So it's really great to see a solution like this. And I'm glad we got to spend time today. We would love to see some of these installed in the ground. If there's any in California or wherever we're traveling, we'll have to communicate, because I would love to try one of these out.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much for having me.
All right,
Really
thanks so much.